Honestly, not sure why I thought I needed to leave the room. I make videos in here. Anyways, hello people, it is I, Peterofworlds, and today we're going to be doing an analysis on the classic video game franchise of Banjo Kazooie. So strap in, guys.
Banjo Kazooie is a good game, Banjo Kazooie is a bad game, Banjo Kazooie is a franchise, doesn't say anything about the current state of the gaming industry. It is not anything.
Sorry, I'm not sure what just happened there. I just kind of got lost in thought for a second. Anyway, let's talk about Banjo Kazooie. Banjo Kazooie was a game released by the company Rare in 1998. Before they had released Banjo Kazooie, Rare had been known for making games such as the Donkey Kong Country games, Battletoads, Blast Corps, and of course, GoldenEye 64. All of these games were released to great critical and commercial success, and it isn't hard to see why. They were fun games. All of them. Just really great games that people simply had a good time playing. However, it's clear from looking at a lot of these games that many of them haven't aged well. Huh? What was that? Probably nothing. But anyways, following the release of these games, Rare released Banjo Kazooie, a 3D platformer that was more or less a clone of Super Mario 64. What the heck? Ugh. But that's not to say it was a bad game. No, in fact, Banjo Kazooie was a great game. It controlled well, it played well, it looked good, and it was addictive from start to finish. But I think we would all be lying to ourselves if we said that it hasn't aged the best. Oh, okay. Why is that happening? Stop! Anyways, we are going to be taking a look at each of the main Banjo Kazooie games, so that won't be including the Game Boy Advance games. Besides the main Banjo Kazooie games, we will also be taking a look at what many consider to be the third true Banjo Kazooie game, Yooka Laylee. More precisely, we are going to look at why the sort of game that Banjo Kazooie was can no longer exist in today's gaming world. The first game, as I had already talked about for a bit, was Banjo Kazooie, released 1998. To get a better understanding of the game and 3D platformers in general, let's first take a quick look at the most influential 3D platformer of all time, Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64 paved the road for 3D platformers to come by introducing great gameplay mechanics, a fun open world design for levels, and a sense of freedom and ability to do whatever one wanted to do. Many consider Banjo Kazooie to be a clone of Super Mario 64 because the games were super similar. In both games, you are running around well-designed levels, collecting items that act as both level objectives and a means of progression, and they both have a non-linear design to them. So here Banjo Kazooie was, shamelessly living under the foundation that Super Mario 64 had so tirelessly built up themselves. It should be easy to see then that when the gameplay of Super Mario 64 started to become dated with time, Banjo Kazooie became just as equally dated with it. Like, think about it. Collecting items in order to further progress in the game? out of style. And it is very obvious that Banjo Kazooie has indeed aged with time. The graphics don't look very good anymore, it doesn't play very well anymore, and it's just not fun anymore. And I think some people just need to realize that if you are having fun with a game like Banjo Kazooie today, it's not actually because the game is good. It's because you are viewing it from the lens of nostalgia. And to those people, I tell you this. View the game as what it is. A very aged game that was good back then, but is now,
Hey, wait. Why does it say mini video essay starting in 5, 4, 3? Wait, what the heck is going on? Wait, hold, stop!
Hey guys, it's me, not Peterofworlds. And today, we're gonna be talking about The Simpsons. The Simpsons is an animated TV show that first debuted on December 17, 1989. In most circles, the show is called one of the best and most influential shows of all time, almost undisputably, and is still running to this day. However, most people also agree that the show was at its best in its early 90s seasons. There is a lot of debate as to when the show first began its decline. However, one episode that many people point to as the beginning of the end of the Simpsons golden age is the episode from the 9th season, The Principal and the Pauper. It first aired on September 28, 1997, and the plot of the episode shockingly revealed that one of the show's most beloved characters, Principal Seymour Skinner, was an imposter who had been leading a double life. Upon its initial airing, the episode received a lot of backlash and was heavily criticized by both fans and critics. Many argued that the episode damaged a lot of the character development and emotional depth that the show had built up in that character over the previous 8 seasons, and by doing this had ruined the character for many of the longtime fans of the show. Many of the people who worked on The Simpsons even admitted at several points in time that they disliked the episode. In an interview in April 2001, Harry Shearer, the voice of Principal Skinner, said that after he read the script for the episode, he said the following: "That's so wrong. You're taking something that an audience has built 8 or 9 years of investment in and just tossed it in the trash can for no good reason, for a story we've done before with other characters. It's so arbitrary and gratuitous, and it's disrespectful to the audience." He later followed up in a December 2006 interview where he said this: "Now the writers refuse to talk about it. They realize it was a horrible mistake. They never mention it. It's like they're punishing the audience for paying attention." And it was not just Shearer who expressed dislike for the episode either. The show creator himself, Matt Groening, describes it in the introduction to the 9th season DVD box set that the episode is one of his least favorites. However, many of the episode's writers, including Ken Keeler, Bill Oakley, and Josh Weinstein, defended it on the TV commentary. Keeler stated that the episode was supposed to be about the people who would in fact hate that they did that. He said it was like a commentary on people who just like things the way they are. In another part of the DVD commentary, it is stated that it is strange that people grow to have such an emotional attachment to a character in a TV show. In short, the writers of the episode didn't realize just how much the show meant to many people, and in this ignorance, they hurt many people. This bizarre story about the beginning of a show's fall from grace is very interesting to me, especially when the controversy can be looked back at with such far hindsight, because it asks a lot of interesting questions on how we as people consume media, art, and entertainment. When we sit down for the first time to watch a new show, play a new video game, or read a book you've never read before, our main thought and reasoning for going into it is that we want to be entertained. In our heads, it isn't much more than that. And as we consume that media, it may at first seem to be just that, entertainment. But then that's where we have to ask ourselves, why do we like to watch TV shows that go on for as long as one like The Simpsons? Is it because of the pure entertainment value? Well, I would imagine the answer is yes. If a show isn't entertaining, then there isn't any point in watching it. But imagine that one day the show just ends abruptly, and the creators and writers of the show move on to make something else. How do you think people would react? Do you think that they would happily just say, "Oh, well, guess the show's over. Let's check out the new one they're making. I liked the other show they made, so I must like this one." Or would they be a bit more sad about it? In almost all cases, the latter is true. When a person watches a show for such a long time, they begin to develop emotional attachment over time to the characters in it. And for a show to just end usually makes people feel a bit sad that their emotional journey that they took with those characters is now at an end, especially if the show ends without resolving any of the personal issues that the characters were dealing with. And this is true even if the new show that the creator and writers make is good. And in the case of The Simpsons, they had, in a way, betrayed the trust of the audience by revealing that a character that they had cared for so deeply over many years was a lie. They were not upset that the emotional journey that they had taken with Principal Skinner was over. No, it was much worse than that. The emotional journey had all been a lie. So no, when we consume media, the sole reason we do it is not just for entertainment. We very often find emotional relatability and catharsis through the stories and characters that leaves us with good impressions and comfort lasting long after the show is finished. And entertainment. And if it doesn't, well, was it ever really worth viewing it in the first place? Probably not. There is a reason that this episode of The Simpsons and the controversy following its airing lives on in such infamy, and it is because it acts as a word of caution to artists. Be careful with what you do with your creation, especially when it means a lot to people. You could very easily end up destroying the value that it originally had, and as a further consequence, could greatly hurt and offend the people who originally admired it. In short, people have feelings.
What the heck was that all about? Weird. But anyways, let's continue.
After Banjo Kazooie came out in 1998, next came Banjo Tooie 2 years later in 2000. Banjo Tooie, like Banjo Kazooie, was released to critical and commercial success. Now, whereas Banjo Kazooie was considered to be a clone of Super Mario 64, Banjo Tooie was a bit more unique of a game due to a lot of the overall changes. For example, it had much larger levels, a lot more moves, and a lot more platforming. Some sections of the game basically turned it from a platformer into a straight-up first-person shooter. The game also added a multiplayer, something that the original did not have. Many consider Banjo Tooie to improve upon the things that Banjo Kazooie did well, and overall to be a better game. In a few ways, one could make the argument that Banjo Tooie was the game that proved that Banjo Kazooie could be a successful franchise. After all, when two games are made and they are both financially and critically successful, it must mean that something is being done right. What it was that they were doing right, however, is up for debate. Maybe it was the marketing strategy, maybe it just came out in the right place at the right time, or maybe, and this is just a personal theory that I made up, the games were fun. I know it sounds ridiculous, and I highly doubt it too, but it's something that we can't rule out of the realm of possibility. After the release of Banjo Tooie, one of the things that people started to criticize Rare for was the fact that they kept on releasing all of these collectathon platformers. It was Banjo Kazooie in 1998, Donkey Kong 64 in 1999, and now in 2000 it was Banjo Tooie. Donkey Kong 64 is actually an interesting game to look at, because some consider it to be where the 3D platformer game that Rare was known for making started to fall from grace. Many said that the reason for this was because in Donkey Kong 64, you were collecting 25 golden bananas in every level, which are essentially the game's equivalent to Jiggies, and 500 bananas in every level, which are the game's equivalent to notes. You also collect coins, fairies, crystal coconuts, camera rolls, ammo, guns, keys, medals, 2 special game progressing coins, and well, you get the idea. From me telling you about how you collect all of these things in the game, it should be obvious for why people didn't like this game. It's because there were too many collectibles. It definitely wasn't because of a small flaw in the gameplay that made a lot of the game take a lot longer than it needed to, which could have easily been fixed if you didn't always have to run back to a character switching barrel so you could then go back to the place you were before and collect those 5 bananas you couldn't get because everything is color-coded to 5 different playable characters. No, that's not why the game was bad. It's because there were just too many collectibles that could have been obtained much faster and made the game much more fast-paced if that small game-changing flaw was fixed. This issue that Donkey Kong 64 had caused other games in the genre like Banjo Kazooie and Tooie to be viewed similarly. And rightfully so, because if one game has an exclusive flaw, it obviously means that all games in that genre all inherently have that flaw. That's just the way it is.
What? No, not you again! No, go away! Stop! No! Stop!
Hey guys, welcome back. It's me, not Peterofworlds, and today we're going to be taking a look at how the Grinch stole Christmas. In 1957, Dr. Seuss published How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Ever since its release, it has been celebrated as one of the best and most recognizable children's books ever published. It has been adapted to film multiple times, once in 1966 as a short animated film, once in 2000 as a live-action feature film, a musical in 2007, and in 2018 a computer animated film. For this video, we are going to be looking mainly at the 1966 animated short film. The basic plot of the book is this. The Grinch hates Christmas, and the fact that everyone in the town of Whoville, of which he lives right above in a mountain cave, loves it, drives him mad, essentially. Because of this, he decides that on Christmas Eve to go and steal everything Christmas related from all the Whos in Whoville. He steals the presents, dinners, decorations, Christmas trees, and everything else that he believes to involve Christmas. However, after stealing everything, he realizes to his shock that they are still happy on Christmas Day. Puzzled, this causes the Grinch to say this.
Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
At a basic level, How the Grinch Stole Christmas is a fun children's story with some very obvious commentary on the over-commercialization of Christmas. It's kind of ironic then how since the publication of the book, it's been adapted twice into a feature-length film by corporations who are, well, profiting off of the commercialization of Christmas. The Grinch has no backstory in the book or animated film, leaving us to assume that he has been living in the mountain cave that he inhabits for his whole life. Because of this, we can assume that the Grinch isn't one who really keeps up with world events. He is quite literally living under a rock. The same can clearly be said for his understanding of Christmas. His only knowledge of Christmas comes from his viewing from afar the celebrations of the Who's. It only makes sense then that the Grinch believes he can physically steal Christmas from them, so when he realizes that he can't actually steal Christmas from them, it makes the impact of the message all the greater. The true joy of Christmas doesn't come from material gain. It comes from the spiritual and emotional meaning through the great birth of Jesus Christ and through being surrounded by people who care about you and love you. In a lot of ways, the parallels that can be drawn from the Grinch's realization that Christmas is a little more than what he initially thought it was do not stop at just the over-commercialization of Christmas. Parallels can be drawn to how a lot of the modern entertainment industry unfortunately operates. The Grinch, in a way, represents the persona of many of the higher-ups in corporations. The gaming industry is a great example of this. The president of the company looks down from his lair every once in a while from far off in an attempt to understand what they want. They may see that they like games where you shoot things or games where you run around in big wide open areas. However, what they sometimes don't understand, or forget at the very least, is that there is a correct way to make these types of games where you shoot people or explore wide open areas. When a game company tries dipping their feet into a new genre of game, they need to remember the importance of actually understanding what makes that sort of game work. This can be done several ways, but I would imagine the best way to do it is to look into past games of the specific genre and see what makes them work or not work. It is also important to understand what the consumers themselves look for in the game or expect from it. And when these Grinch game companies only view these things from afar without a good understanding, they end up creating a product that is out of touch with what people want, and the result is poor. A great example of this is the company Bethesda. They were respected for decades as a game company, making many popular franchises such as the Elder Scrolls series and the Fallout series. However, a lot of people lost a lot of respect for Bethesda when, in 2018, they released Fallout 76, an online first-person shooter open-world game. The game was panned by fans of the Fallout franchise and by critics, with a lot of criticism being directed at the innumerable number of bugs, glitches, the graphics, and overall just being a boring game. To learn about everything that happened regarding this game in more detail, I would recommend Internet Historian's video on it, called The Fall of 76. It's a great video, and I'll put it in the description. One reason that some people gave for not liking the game was because they considered it a representation of everything the Fallout franchise was originally not supposed to be. The Fallout franchise was originally developed by Obsidian Games, and many consider the best Fallout games to be the ones developed by them, those being 1, 2, and New Vegas. They say that what made these games great was the feeling of loneliness and fear of traveling through a post-apocalyptic wasteland on your own. Then, fast forwarding to Fallout 76, the games are now suddenly about running through abandoned wastelands together with your friends. The original meaning of the franchise was lost as a result of an out-of-touch game company not being able to see what their fans wanted. The Fallout franchise means a lot to the longtime fans, and many felt that under Bethesda it had become a shadow of its former self. During Bethesda's E3 2019 conference, their presentation consisted of, aside from a lot of very lackluster game showcases, the company essentially begging for their fans to still like them. On that stage, we could see that Todd was reminded of a very important lesson. To some people, Fallout and video games at large mean just a little bit more. It's said that on that day, Todd's wallet shrunk 3 sizes that day, and he got a very unpleasant reality check.
Okay, I really don't know why those keep on happening. It's really bizarre. It's kind of weird though, actually, because I feel like they're trying to tell me something. It's really weird. Let's just keep keep going.
Next up, we are talking about Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, by far one of the most notorious games to ever be released, and for good reason as well. You see, after the release of Banjo Tooie, aside from a couple of handheld releases, the Banjo Kazooie franchise received no new games for the next 8 years. Many people speculate as to what the reason for this was, and some hold the belief that it was as a result of Rare being bought out by Microsoft. Most people are unsure as to why this caused no new Banjo games to be released for the next 8 years, and to be honest, I don't think we'll ever know. But when Nuts and Bolts finally released as the third main entry to the Banjo Kazooie franchise in 2008, people were not impressed with the final product, and it is very clear as to why this is. The game was very bad. Yes, it was objectively bad. It was boring, it was uninventive, it wasn't fun, and it even had some glitches and bugs in certain parts. Rare should be ashamed for making such a low quality game. Like, first of all, the gameplay was really bad. You build vehicles that you use to play the game. As you progress further, you unlock vehicle parts that let you make more complicated vehicles. This game mechanic is very boring, and since the game is based entirely around it, it is easy to imagine why the whole game is boring and bad. It is very hard to imagine when looking back at this game as to what they were thinking. Like, having the player create and build their own content in the game? What an unbelievably stupid idea. Who would ever want to do that? The gameplay, however, was not the only reason as to why Nuts and Bolts was a bad game. Another issue that the game had was the graphics. Like, why do Banjo and Kazooie look like that? Whose idea was this? It's weird. It's almost like they
Took away the charm that made Banjo Kazooie Banjo Kazooie. Nah, that can't be it. Anyways, let's talk about the other problems the game has.
The level design was another problem that the game had. The levels were all very big, but they all felt so empty. There were just characters scattered around them that you accepted missions from, which is mostly how you progress in the game. You could also collect notes scattered around the world, but aside from those two things, there was not much else. It made the game feel pretty empty. It made a Banjo Kazooie game feel
Empty? Okay, why do I feel as if I'm missing something, like that Nuts and Bolts wasn't actually a bad game because of the reasons that I just said? Like, maybe it was because of a much different reason. Maybe they forgot to include something that the other Banjo Kazooie games before had? Something that had to do with the whole meaning of the games? Let me try again.
The reception to Nuts and Bolts said something about the Banjo Kazooie franchise. It said that
I don't know, that people only like games that are fun, even if they're obviously clones of Super Mario 64. Like, I don't know what to gather from this. Like, what was... No, not again! Go away. I demand to know, what is causing this?
Hey guys, welcome back yet again. It's me, not Peterofworlds, and today we're going to be taking a look at the short film Rejected. If you've been on the internet for a good amount of time, chances are that you've run into the animated short film Rejected. The film was created by animator Don Hertzfeldt and released in 2000. Even though the whole film does not even reach 10 minutes, it is widely considered to be one of the most influential films of the 21st century, and it has won a countless number of awards, and it isn't hard to see why.
My spoon is too big. My spoon is too big. My spoon is too big. I am a banana!
No, I'm being serious. Please stick with me here. This short basically gave birth to all of modern internet culture. The surrealist humor of the short directly influenced memes, YouTube content, trends, and really just the whole aesthetic of the 2008-esque internet era. And really, even to this day, the humor continues to stay very influential in the things that people find funny. Just think of a few of those memes from a few years ago like E or Ugandan Knuckles. When you consider stuff like that, it should be clear that there really shouldn't be a debate. This 9-minute short was the online equivalent of Pandora's box, because when the internet discovered it, well... welcome to the World Wide Web, children. Now, I would love to tell you that Rejected as a piece of media is notable only for the impact it had on internet culture. I honestly really would, but that would be a lie, and lying is bad. Also, the goal of this video isn't to educate you about memes. Other people have tried doing that before, and from what I remember, it didn't go over very well. It really didn't. No, I'm sorry to do this to you all, but the other reason why Rejected is such an interesting piece of art is because of its critiques on capitalism! Not really sure what 20th Century Fox has to do with it, but yeah, capitalism. Aside from its influential surrealist humor, Rejected is also a commentary on how capitalism actively suppresses creativity through companies being more focused on selling their products and keeping a positive image in the eyes of the public by being as safe as possible, which, as a result, causes a lot of artists to lose their freedom of expression while working in areas such as advertising. This is why, in the film, all of the cartoons that Hertzfeld submits are rejected. They are unwieldy to the normie mainstream audience. I hate myself. In a couple of the shorts, this message is made very clear. At the end of one of the cartoons, one of the characters calls himself a consumer whore. While this may at first just seem to be a tasteless joke, it's really the first clear indication of what the film is attempting to say. People who willfully work for large corporations are essentially giving these corporations their artistic freedom and expression in exchange for money. They lose all their rights to express themselves, and any form of artistic expression and emotion that they put into their work will be rejected. This idea is expanded upon towards the end, where after the segment where it shows the rejected commercials for the Johnson & Mills Corporation, it says the following: Don's clear and steady downhill state continued. Soon he was completing commercial segments entirely with his left hand. It then shows a poorly drawn and animated short of two characters speaking nonsense. Immediately after this cartoon, it says the following: Perhaps it was the animator's creative stagnation in the commercial world, or a deeper loss of individuality therein. Without meaningful input and lacking any remaining reason or coherent narrative structure, the rejected cartoons grew unstable. They began to fall apart. It then shows many of the characters from the previous cartoons in panic as their world begins to literally fall apart. While it at first seems humorous, an unsettling feeling washes over you during the last 15 seconds before the credits roll, where it shows this. The way I view this is that the character with the bunny ears is supposed to represent Don Hertzfeld himself. This is backed up during this cartoon segment.
You're watching the Family Learning Channel. And now, angry ticks fire out of my nipples.
The character refers to the character with bunny ears in this segment as being him. So what these last 15 seconds represent then is essentially Don's cry of horror as the
Greedy, soulless corporations
that he allowed himself to work for destroys the last bit of creative freedom that he has left. While one could argue that these anti-corporate messages in this short are maybe a bit of an exaggeration, the main idea behind it is still true enough to be depressing. And sadly, this does not even apply exclusively to the advertising world. Television networks, game companies, film companies, almost every part of the entertainment industry has, at least to some degree, a forced responsibility to make their products as friendly to the public as possible. And it's not something you can necessarily blame directly on them. They are businesses. They need to make money to survive. It's for better or for worse what our culture and society has been built off of. If something will cause them to make less money, they will change or remove something to make that not the case, even if it means stifling the expression and freedom of the people who work for them. For the fictional companies that are seen and rejected, such as the Family Learning Channel and the Johnson & Mills Corporation, money comes first, creativity comes last. And sadly, these companies are based on real ones. If a show of yours that you really like isn't making enough money for the studio, it may very well be cancelled and replaced with something that they consider to make more money. If one of your favorite games doesn't meet the expectations of the company it lives under, it may never get the sequel that was planned for it. For these companies, they literally mean every word when they say, "It's nothing personal, just business."
What are these weird visions? Must Go on with the video.
So after the release of Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, the franchise has not received any new entries since then. They have appeared, however, as a playable character in the Xbox 360 version of the 2010 racing game Sonic and Sega All-Star Racing.
Some people may find this to be a pretty random inclusion, like Banjo Kazooie in a Sonic game? Wait. Actually, you know, after thinking about it for a while, I actually think I kind of understand the reasoning. Sonic and Banjo Kazooie were both franchises back in the day that had great games, but are now just shadows of their former selves. It's pretty clever once you think about it. Except, actually, Sonic did have a good game back in 2017. They released a game that people liked. You know, it almost says something about a video game franchise and how in order for it to stay relevant, you just need to put out games in that franchise that are good, but more importantly, games that the fans actually want. I forget the word, sorry. Where was I? Oh yeah, games that Banjo Kazooie appeared in.
Banjo Kazooie have also appeared as downloadable characters in the game Minecraft.
You know, because Minecraft is owned by Microsoft, and so is Banjo Kazooie. You know, it really is a good thing that Banjo Kazooie is owned by Microsoft now, because it really is cool to see a large bobbing rectangular prism in the corner of my screen while I play Minecraft. So thank you, Microsoft. Really outdid yourselves with this one.
All three of the main Banjo Kazooie games all appeared in the Xbox One title Rare Replay, a compilation of 30 games from Rare that they consider to be their most important games.
And it really is a good collection, although considering that these games are supposed to be what they consider their most important, I am a little confused as to why they didn't include, say, the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, or GoldenEye 64, or Donkey Kong 64, because those games were all pretty important for Rare as a company. Oh right, I think it had something to do with licensing issues. Like GoldenEye 64 wasn't included because like they were scared that James Bond was gonna sue them or something, and the Donkey Kong games weren't included because like those are now a Nintendo-owned franchise essentially. So yeah, that's a bit disappointing. But it's still not as disappointing as the other games they didn't include. They didn't include Connect Sports. Like that game was basically Rare's magnum opus. How could they not include it? Disappointed.
And that's really all the appearances that Banjo Kazooie have made as characters in any games since Nuts and Bolts. No wait, there was another game, one that I feel like I'm forgetting.
What was it? They appeared as DLC in some fighting game or something. Super... Meh. It was probably just some junky shovelware title or something.
So it still remains true to this day that Banjo and Kazooie have not appeared in any other game of their own since Nuts and Bolts.
However, there is still another game that we need to talk about. And that game is... No! Go away!
Hey everyone, not Peterofworlds here, YouTube's most unoriginal video essayist. And today, we're going to be looking at Canadian indie rock band Arcade Fire's classic record, The Suburbs. The Suburbs was released on August 2, 2010 as Arcade Fire's third studio album. Upon its initial release, the album received wildly positive reviews from critics and fans, with some calling it their best album to date. As time has gone on, the reception towards the album arguably just grows more positive, and if you give it a good listen, it isn't hard to see why. In a lot of ways, this album is the definition of art that gets better with time. Truly a fine wine. But why? Because this album deals heavily with the topics of time, relationships, and nostalgia. In short, it is an album of longing for past times where life seemed to be so much better. Let's look at some of the lyrics on the songs. Take these lyrics from the title track. Sometimes I can't believe it, I'm moving past the feeling. These lines can be seen as the overarching concept throughout the songs. As we get older, we slowly start to let go of the memories of our youth that we held so dear to us, and in the back of our minds, we ourselves are shocked that we are allowing ourselves to do that. Eventually, it gets to the point where we miss that feeling of actually missing the feeling. Bottom line, the album tries to deeply explore the concepts of time and nostalgia through the previously mentioned lines of lyrics. These very interesting lyrics continue throughout the whole album. Look at these lyrics from the third track, Modern Man. Oh, I had a dream I was dreaming, and I feel I'm losing the feeling. Makes me feel like something don't feel right. I erase the number of the modern man. Want to break the mirror of the modern man. These lyrics deal with the feeling of growing up and how it feels wrong, like you forgot something from your past while growing up. The track Empty Room deals with the idea of how when we are alone in a room by ourselves, we act differently. We act like who we truly are. Sometimes maybe even the kid inside of us comes out. Look at these lyrics from the track Wasted Hours. Some cities make you lose your head. Endless suburbs stretched out thin and dead. What was that line you said? Wishing you were anywhere but here. You watch the life you're living disappear. And now I see, we're still kids in the buses, longing to be free. Wasted hours before we knew where to go and what to do. Wasted hours that you make new and turn into a life that we can live. The idea behind these lines is that as you live life, you wish you could go back to being a kid and use the hours that you still had more wisely. The songs Sprawl 1, Flatlands, and Sprawl 2, Mountains Beyond Mountains deal with the idea of how when you go back to a place you haven't been to in years, the feeling that it gives you can be very hard-hitting emotionally. Like when you go back to a house you used to live in years ago during your childhood. This is especially so in cases where maybe it's changed since you last have seen it. They also talk about how sometimes growing up, life can feel as if it has no meaning, but every once in a while, often in quiet introspective moments, such as at night, that feeling that life gave us as children can sometimes come back. The closing track, The Suburbs Continued, a reprise of the opening track, has, in my opinion, the most emotionally hard-hitting lyrics on the album. If I could have it back, all the time that we wasted, I'd only waste it again. If I could have it back, you know I would love to waste it again. Waste it again and again and again. These confessional lyrics represent a state of mind that I think basically every human being has had at some point in their lives. Sometimes we just want to go back and do all of the stupid things that we did as kids that were so strangely memorable to us. We want the magic that life used to give so abundantly back, and that's the album. While I was revisiting this album for the video, I had actually forgotten just how well it gets its ideas across. I really don't think there are many other pieces of art in this world that capture the bittersweet feelings of nostalgia and the past. It feels strangely good, but at the same time, it envelops you with this itching feeling of frustration and sadness, knowing that these emotions that you once felt may never return to you again. Most people know the saying, you don't know what you really have until it's gone. This album truly shows that this sentiment does not just apply to the material world, but to the abstract as well. I was happy to revisit this album now because I am at a time where I can really relate to the things that it is saying. I've finished high school, soon I am going to be moving, I'm going to be attending university soon, and a lot of the people I once saw every day I don't see at all anymore. Looking back at the life I had as a kid and the things that I occupied myself with, things were drastically different. There are very few things that I currently have now that, when I see, I am reminded of that life. But when I do see them, it's like the lyrics in Sprawl 2, Mountains Beyond Mountains. You've been living your life, and then you find something from your past, and all the old emotions from the youth come flooding to the surface. And it feels really, really good? Bad? I'm not entirely sure, and I guess that's part of what makes the feeling so magical. Video games. What do they mean? What do they equal? Mass times video games equal the theory of big open world fun and things, and Fallout 76 is a bad game, and hot dogs taste good with Chipotle. Let's stay on topic. Banjo Kazooie normal franchise analysis. Let's go! In May 2015, a Kickstarter campaign was started by many former Rare employees, such as Chris Sutherland, Steve Miles, and Grant Kirko, all who worked on Banjo Kazooie. Under the company name Platonic Games, their goal was to create a spiritual successor to Banjo Kazooie. Many people were clearly excited about this because the Kickstarter goal of £175,000 was reached in around 40 minutes. In all, the Kickstarter received over £2.1 million from 80,000 backers. £2.1 million, by the way, in dollars is a lot more. The Kickstarter campaign has went down as being one of the most successful in the history of the website. Now, the actual product that came out of the Kickstarter? Maybe not as much. Yooka Laylee released on April 11, 2017 to a pretty lukewarm response. While some people in the online community did show overall satisfaction with the game,
I had a really good time with Yooka Laylee.
Yooka Laylee has made me smile from ear to ear.
the main consensus was that the game was kind of a disappointment.
It's rare we feel the need to cover a current game, but Yooka Laylee's failings were too spectacular to ignore.
It ends up feeling like a fan tribute rather than something a team of professionals worked on, and I'm very disappointed with this game.
But why did everybody not really like the game? Well, the answer is simple. Because the type of game that it was trying to be is outdated. People had forgotten that the type of game that Banjo Kazooie was doesn't work anymore in modern games. In Yooka Laylee, you run around giant worlds looking for a bunch of collectible items. And when I say a whole bunch, I mean a whole bunch. In every level, there are 200 quills you have to collect, which are basically like Banjo Kazooie's notes, and 25 pages, which are basically jiggies. In all, there are 145 pages to collect and 1,010 quills. You also have to collect a large variety of other random things. When will people learn? Collecting items in a game as the means of progression is outdated gameplay. It's a good thing that Super Mario Odyssey came out 6 months later to show people why this was. Super Mario Odyssey is a fantastic game, and it manages to do everything that Yooka Laylee was unable to do. In this game, you collect over 880 Power Moons, which are kind of like, jiggies. I forgot. You also collect in each world 50 special world-exclusive coins, and in all there are 800 of these special coins. And that's not even including the normal coins that you collect throughout the game, which by the end are in the thousands. So as you can see, Super Mario Odyssey truly showed gamers that the collectathon genre was dead. Collecting items in games just makes a game not fun. It's a shame that Yooka Laylee didn't learn that. It could have been a great game if it understood that. Yooka Laylee and the game's reception really acted as a harsh reminder to gamers around the world. When you have good memories from your childhood with something, it's not because that thing was good. It's because, well, you were a kid and you didn't know what you liked. Like, you know all those good memories that you had growing up with Banjo Kazooie? And all the fun that you had with it, perhaps watching your brother play it late at night, and being overjoyed maybe when you unlocked the next door, or opened up a new level? Well, yeah, I'm sorry to break it to you, but that was all fake. That was all nostalgia. You never had fun with that game. And that's the sad but true reality. Games like Super Mario Odyssey prove that the type of 3D platformer that Banjo Kazooie was is dead. Wait a minute. Why do I hear a voice somewhere saying, "Are you crazy?" No, it doesn't. Probably just my imagination. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and remember to like and subscribe and... Huh? Weird, it's just a message from some guy I don't even know that says Smash Ultimate trailer. Why does... Oh, maybe they want me to watch some sort of character DLC trailer for it. Let's check it out. Wait, what character was this? Haven't really been paying attention to the game much lately. Oh, it's just Banjo Kazooie. You know, it was actually really weird that they did this, because as I said before, Banjo Kazooie as a franchise just can't really exist anymore in today's gaming world. It can't be fun. Surely the reactions to this trailer were really bad. Like they're such old characters at this point. Nobody probably even knows who they are. They all probably whined about how much of a waste of a character space this was. They were all probably going, "Boo, boo!" That's a reaction I simply must see. He paused and put a reaction video on the TV. And he did find some reactions to the reveal. They at first to him seemed surreal, but he soon saw they were real.
It's Banjo! It's Banjo Kazooie! Oh my... No freaking way. They played us like a damn fiddle. Like a damn banjo!
I am so happy. I can't believe it, it's happening.
I'm serious! I am so beautiful! I can't breathe!
Banjo, Kazooie, we're home.
But these reactions weren't mad. Why, these reactions appeared glad. Every gamer down in the internet, the tall and the small, were happy. without any new Banjo game at all. No new Banjo game in over a decade hadn't stopped Banjo Kazooie's inclusion in Smash. They came somehow or other. They came looking like they did in their first game. The video essayist with his video essayist butt really numb in his chair sat puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? They came without a game. They came without recent popularity. They came without licensing issues, branding, or reason for it to be a profitable business idea. He puzzled and puzzled till his puzzler was sore. Then the video essayist thought of something he hadn't before. What if a game, he thought, is not just something you buy from a store? What if a game, perhaps, means a little bit more? So you finally figured it out, I see.
Hold on, who are you?
How about I tell you that after I play the final mini video essay, okay?
Wait, what? You're the one who's doing that? Now hold on just a sec.
Hello again, guys. It's me, not Peterofworlds. And now we're gonna be looking at a commercial. On October 19, 2016, a video titled Pokemon Evolution's Sun and Moon commercial was uploaded to YouTube by John Wickstrom. The video acts as a fan-made commercial for the games Pokemon Sun and Moon and acts simultaneously as a celebration for the Pokemon franchise's 20th anniversary. It also acts as, well, watch the video for yourself. It's quite a lot in my opinion. Now, what makes this commercial so good? Well, let's do a bit of analyzing. The video starts off with a young boy playing Pokemon Red on his Game Boy Color. The music has a very childlike feel to it. The video then shows shots of things in his room, such as his Pokemon cards. From this it shows us that this kid was not just somebody who played Pokemon. He was somebody who lived Pokemon. It then shows him trading cards with his sister and then playing Pokemon Red again in his bed, hiding under his blanket. Just then, his Charmander in the game starts to evolve. He looks excited, he blinks, and then he grows up. He evolves. And just then, the music goes from a very childlike feel to a more mature sound with a piano. It shows him going through the normal day-to-day experience of every adult, working at his desk job, reading at home, going for a walk, when suddenly, he sees something very familiar. He sees his childhood. He sees the memories he had, playing on his Game Boy, trading cards with his sister. He sees the fun times that he had, and then he smiles, and the childlike music from before returns. The child from within is brought out. The following text is then shown. You evolved. So did we. This video is, by an astronomically large margin, my favorite commercial. I hate calling it a commercial, because when people think of commercials, they usually think of them being bad. This commercial is not bad. This commercial is good. Can I just call it like a buy this productinator? That sounds so much less dystopian. It's pretty ironic then that this wasn't even made by the company who were trying to sell this product. It was made by someone who the product meant a lot to. In some ways, maybe even more than the people who made the product. But irony aside, this commercial really captures my feelings on what media can mean to someone really well. A game doesn't mean something to someone like the man in the commercial because it was simply a fun game. It meant something to him because of the memories that were made from it, whether they be his own or shared with others, like his sister. Maybe the true Pokemon we caught were the friends we made along the way. But what truly makes this commercial great, obviously, is the sheer amount of emotion that was put into it. And that's something that game companies themselves sadly can rarely, if ever, fully understand. The meaning that many people put into the games that are made by companies like Nintendo or Microsoft or Sony is a feeling that can't always be comprehended by these companies. It's often hard for the creators to see what it can do for people on a personal level, because all they do is make the games. And for a company like Nintendo, who has franchises like Pokemon that have been going on for decades and have stayed popular for decades, it's very interesting to see the importance that they have for many people who grew up with them, and even by new players who buy each of the new titles. But as much as I love this commercial, and as emotional as it has made me get at times, Pokemon was not the franchise I really grew up with. I got into Pokemon when I was about 10, and even then, it wasn't something I played religiously or anything like that. No, a different game franchise holds that title for me, and unlike Pokemon, the story of that franchise hasn't gotten the same amount of recognition, and therefore it hasn't evolved as much as the Pokemon franchise has. But to this day, I still hold on to it, because like this commercial points out really well, there's a child in all of us. It might not always be apparent, but when it does become apparent, the feeling hits really, really hard. Now, the game that I grew up with is Banjo Kazooie. It means a lot to me in the same way the Pokemon franchise means a lot to other people. For a long time, I have waited for a new Banjo Kazooie game, but it hasn't happened yet. The last Banjo Kazooie game was Nuts and Bolts in 2008, and well, that wasn't really the game people, and I for that matter, wanted. But in 2019, the Smash trailer came, and I felt the childlike emotions come back to me really hard. In a lot of ways, it was like a new Banjo Kazooie game got announced. And it felt really great. So, have you started figuring out what's going on now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I have. But who are you?
Well, I'm you.
What? Yeah, I know that, but like, what are you supposed to represent?
You. Come on, dude, figure it out yourself. I got places to go.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Bye.
Okay, hold on. Before I go, I need you to remember what it means to you. Okay?
Okay.
I'll see you around.
Let's keep going.
Banjo and Kazooie's inclusion in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate shook the gaming community in every way imaginable. Many couldn't believe what they saw. These characters that they grew up playing and whom many thought to be a hopelessly dead franchise inexplicably were added to the game. But why exactly did this come as such a shock? And why were there so many people who didn't think that such an inclusion was possible? Well, to understand, I think we need to go back a little bit. When Rare was purchased by Microsoft in 2002, many considered this to be the moment the company left its golden age, the moment it died. While they worked under Nintendo, and especially during the Nintendo 64 era, Rare was arguably the most creative and consistent game company at the time. Almost every game that they made during this era has achieved classic status over time, and for good reason. Some of these games include Blast Corps, GoldenEye 64, Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64, Jet Force Gemini, Banjo Tooie, Perfect Dark, Conker's Bad Fur Day.
These were all on the Nintendo 64. All of them.
What's even more impressive is that they didn't just stick to one genre. They were making 3D platformers, first-person shooters, kart racers, basically everything that they made seemed to hit. Why was this?
Because they had creative freedom.
While working under Nintendo, Rare was given free creative control, and that's really where the key is. You see, Nintendo is a company that solely makes video games. Video games are their entire market, and without them, they would have no business. That is why, to them, video games are one of their bigger, if not biggest, priorities. Now, some of you might be wondering how that explains Rare's decline in quality when they were purchased by Microsoft. And well,
what do you think of when you think of Microsoft? Do you think of video games? You might, but hold on. Here's a great joke for you. How does Bill Gates get into his house? He uses Windows. Get it? Because Bill Gates is the owner of Microsoft, and Microsoft is most well known for their brand of computers called Windows. Okay, you get it now?
Microsoft as a company is interesting because it doesn't just make one thing. In terms of electronics, they have multiple ventures. Their most well-known one is obviously computers, but they are also well known for their web browsers, Internet Explorer and Edge, their glorified Notepad, Microsoft Office, and of course the Xbox. Now, you might initially think that with a company of Microsoft's size that they would be able to give their employees lots of creative freedom, especially in the realm of video games, right? Well, not necessarily. You see, because of how Microsoft has branched itself out as a company into multiple ventures, its business model doesn't rely on one single entity in order to make a profit in the way that Nintendo does. If one area of business isn't turning out a profit, it doesn't really cause a significant blow to them, because the other areas of business are most likely turning out a profit. This way, they are never losing money. And I suppose that's where I should tell you something interesting.
Microsoft doesn't really make money from Xbox.
It's true. Any profit that they get from their business in the video game industry comes mostly from software on the Xbox, as well as their subscription services, including Xbox Live and Xbox Game Pass. The funny thing though with Xbox Game Pass, however, is that it is multi-platform at this point.
So in other words, you can play a Netflix-style library of games on your Windows. These are my Windows. Boom! Got 'em!
But that begs the question, why do they even stick around in the video game console industry? Like, if there isn't any money in it, why not just make games for their Windows computers, which they already seem to be doing anyway?
Because Microsoft. Microsoft.
One of the biggest reasons that Microsoft has stuck around in the console industry for so long isn't because they intend to make a profit through them. No, it's for the brand recognition. Microsoft keeps making consoles because they act as great advertising for the Microsoft brand. This works because basically anywhere a person goes in the electronic world, they will see Microsoft somewhere at some point. That's the main idea of why Microsoft has stuck around in the console industry for as long as they have. Not for money, for the brand recognition.
Clarification, the Xbox division of Microsoft makes profit, but like Xboxes themselves don't make a profit. Bottom line, what I'm trying to say is Microsoft just doesn't care to make high quality games. They just want a game that helps their brand look good. Wait, what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, Banjo Kazooie and creative freedom.
Okay, so the reason I am telling you all this is because Microsoft, in contrast to Nintendo, does not give their employees a lot of creative freedom in the realm of video games, because making boundary-pushing, risk-taking video games are not their priority. The main priority of Microsoft Game Studios is to make games that increase recognition of the Microsoft brand. If they need to make these games fun in the process, they will attempt to do this, usually with varying degrees of success. But for the most part, not only does Microsoft not prioritize high-quality games, but in some cases they actively discourage it. As I said before, Microsoft does not want to make risk-taking, boundary-pushing games because they have the possibility to just not do very well, because they would be a new IP that their current customers most likely just wouldn't care too much about. In some cases, it may even damage the relationship they have with their current audience. That is where part of the issue surrounding Banjo Kazooie starts to become unraveled. Audience. After the release of Yooka Laylee, many people started to dismiss what they'd called the 3D collectathon platformer genre. They said that the type of game that Yooka Laylee was attempting to be was a genre of platformers that existed only to show people what a 3D platformer could be. In other words, they were saying that games like Banjo Kazooie acted as a sort of tech demo for 3D games to come. To them, that is why they considered the game to be bad. The gameplay was dated, and to some extent, I thought that these arguments sort of made sense, but I still had questions because,
well, I still had fun playing Banjo Kazooie.
I really didn't have an answer until later in that same year when Yooka Laylee came out, Super Mario Odyssey was released. Because of the release of this game, I eventually realized that Yooka Laylee did not fail because the type of game it was had become outdated. No, the game just simply had a lot of gameplay flaws that were exclusive mostly to itself, not the collectathon genre. Let me explain why I knew this. So, Super Mario Odyssey released and it received near unanimous acclaim. Commercially, it also performed unbelievably well, having sold at this point over 20 million copies. And I enjoyed it too. Some considered it to be the blueprint for 3D platformers to come, but to me, that didn't really make sense. As I played Super Mario Odyssey, the gameplay was indeed pretty different from the other 3D Mario games that came before it. It wasn't like Super Mario Galaxy 1 or 2 because those games had a very linear design. Super Mario Odyssey was open world. It wasn't like Super Mario Sunshine because that game was kind of a mix of being open world but also linear mission design. The most similar 3D Mario game that Super Mario Odyssey can be compared to is, ironically, Super Mario 64. The same game that, when released, people considered it to be the blueprint for 3D platformers to come. The games really do share a lot of similarities. In both of them, you enter one of many levels with an open world design, and in both of them, you also collect coins, and as the main means of progression, Power Stars in Super Mario 64 or Power Moons in Super Mario Odyssey. But here's something that's kind of funny. In Super Mario 64, when you collect a Power Star, you are transported out of the level. You then have to go back into the world to get the next Power Star. However, in Super Mario Odyssey, you can collect as many Power Moons as you want, and you won't be transported out of the world every time you collect one. It might seem like a really minor difference, but it really changes drastically the way the game is played.
The first time I played Super Mario Odyssey, I noticed that. I thought to myself, weird, this is the first 3D Mario game that just lets you keep on playing after you collect the Power Star or Power Moon or Shine Sprite or whatever, without taking you out of the level. Just like in... And that's where it hit me. Super Mario Odyssey is basically Banjo Kazooie.
It seemed like I was the only one who noticed this. Super Mario Odyssey shares at its core so many of the things that made Banjo Kazooie such a fun and unique game in the first place. Emphasis on exploration?
Yes.
Super smooth controls and satisfying gameplay?
Yes.
Collecting an unholy number of little objects that are used as the main means of progression in the game?
Well, I mean, like, in Super Mario Odyssey, it's a bit different because, yes! Super Mario Odyssey has a lot of collectibles. It is, by definition, a 3D collectathon platforming game.
Super Mario Odyssey showed me once and for all that, from an objective game standpoint, Banjo Kazooie could come back. However, when Super Mario Odyssey released, a new Banjo Kazooie game hadn't been released in around 9 years. That and the fact that the reception to Nuts and Bolts all those years back was so poor made it so that from a business standpoint, Microsoft had no reason to believe that a new Banjo Kazooie game would be popular.
So this brings us back to the question, why was Microsoft's acquisition of Rare considered to be the end of Rare's golden age? Because Rare's greatest strength back in the day, their main reason for why they made such excellent games, was because of their creativity. Nintendo as a business thrives off of creativity. Microsoft more or less just doesn't.
Microsoft and Rare are a great real-world example of the capitalist corruption that was being alluded to in Don Hertzfeld's Rejected. Rare can be seen as Don Hertzfeld, while Microsoft acts as the nameless corporations that continuously stifle the ideas of Don for not sticking to the very limited path that large corporate entities allow one to walk on. Because of this, just like in Rejected, Rare went into a steady downhill state. Under Microsoft, they suffered creative stagnation under such a strict corporate environment, and so without any meaningful input, the games they made began to fall apart, or in other words,
stopped being good.
So that is essentially the story of how Rare fell from grace under Microsoft, and why we haven't gotten a new Banjo Kazooie game yet.
Are you starting to see now why people were so shocked that Banjo Kazooie were included in Smash? No? Well good, because there's more.
Let's talk a bit more now about Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. When it was released, people were not happy. They thought it was a bad game. But was it really a bad game? Well, I played the game recently, and honestly, it's pretty good. It has its flaws, but there are things to like about the game, including the vehicle creation garage, some of the missions, the hub world, and even some of the exploration. So no, objectively, I can't say the game was really that bad. So then why was everybody, including me, so outraged over the game? The answer is simple. It's because of what the game represents. What it said to the fans of the previous games. In the opening to the game, this happens. Now then, in line with Banjo tradition, your challenge will consist of collecting as many pointless objects as possible. Let the collectathon commence! No. It's too painful to watch. Gamers today don't want all this. They just want to shoot things. But as we're broadening the demographic, I'll have to think of something original. What the heck? This was literally the beginning of the game. This was supposed to set the tone of the game. They literally begin the game by making fun of the people who liked the previous games. Like, gamers don't want this? Yes, they do. We only want to shoot things. What on earth? When we heard there was going to be a new Banjo Kazooie game, we wanted them to be like the old games. And gamers certainly didn't want this game, I'll tell you that. But maybe they learned from their mistakes and started putting out games they actually... Kinect games! No, Microsoft, what were you thinking? Why did you even buy Rare if you were just going to squander their talent by having them make games for a piece of hardware that nobody wanted? What in the world? Okay, so by now the problem should be clear. To many people who played the game, this is where they put the control down and said they were done. It didn't matter to them what the actual game was like. They knew now that it wasn't what they wanted, and it appeared that Rare or Microsoft, whoever you want to blame, knew this too. To many, this was a betrayal. It's a similar story to what happened with the Simpsons episode, The Principal and the Pauper. They took something that fans had spent years caring so deeply about and just slapped them all in the face for that. They were in a way punishing fans for being fans. This is why people truly hated and continue to despise Nuts and Bolts. Not because it was a bad game, but because of what it represented. The game was basically Microsoft telling fans of Banjo Kazooie directly to their faces, hey, you know Banjo and Kazooie, those games you had so much fun playing growing up? Well, you're never getting another game like that from this franchise again. We don't care if that's what you want. We only care about broadening the demographic, aka making more money. If you want a new Banjo Kazooie game, go start a Kickstarter campaign or something, I don't care. Now, that brings us back to Banjo Kazooie's reveal in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. People were shocked beyond belief. Some people, including myself, even cried at the reveal. But why? Because this was the first time since Rare worked under Nintendo where they were working for the fans. Finally, after so many years, all of the people who grew up playing Banjo Kazooie and I had their Pokemon evolution moment. I still remember vividly when I saw the reveal for the first time. The moment that Jiggy bounced on the floor, my heart jumped higher than it ever had before. And as the trailer played, all I could think about was the countless memories I had growing up with the game. Playing it with my siblings, reaching new areas, laughing, having a good time. It was a feeling that was indescribable in every sense of the word. I know it sounds a little silly, but that moment was important to me on so many levels. It hit me harder on an emotional level that I really can't say another piece of media ever has for me. It made me realize just how old I was. It made me realize I had evolved. What also made this so special was just how unexpected it was. There had been talk previously about how Microsoft had wanted to bring Banjo and Kazooie into Smash, but no one really thought it meant anything, because in the grand scheme of things, there was no reason for anyone at Microsoft to think that this would be a good idea. Banjo and Kazooie were old characters who they most likely thought nobody cared about anymore, and maybe that's what they were trying to figure out once and for all with this reveal. If people still cared about them as characters. And when everyone reacted to the reveal the way they did, that's when all of the corporate Grinches had their mountaintop realization. Maybe a game to some people means just a little bit more. They realized people hadn't forgotten a part of their childhood just like that. But unfortunately, their hearts didn't grow 3 sizes that day. I do imagine though that their wallets did. You know, because now they know a new Banjo Kazooie game would be good for the brand and for business. Banjo Kazooie being revealed for Smash Ultimate meant so much to me. It really did. And as a longtime fan of the franchise, it felt almost like justice had been done to some extent. And you know, this may even mean that a new Banjo Kazooie game could come very soon. I don't know when I will have this video out, but as I am writing this, the Microsoft E3 conference is just around the corner, and I genuinely think that now with Banjo Kazooie and Smash, a new Banjo Kazooie game could be announced. Okay, so the Microsoft E3 conference has come and gone, and they did not, as it turns out, announce a new Banjo Kazooie game. I still hold true to what I said, that in the future a new one could easily come out, so just pretend that I'm talking about next year's E3 conference or something. Okay, back to the video. But you know, even if that is the case, I really don't know if it's even going to be very good. A new Banjo Kazooie game or not, what made Rare a great company has been gone since 2002, and a lot of the old staff that worked on Banjo Kazooie have left the company anyway. Any new Banjo Kazooie game that gets made won't be made necessarily out of love, but very possibly just because Microsoft knows it will make them money. While I can hope, I really don't know if it could ever be as good as the first two Banjo Kazooie games, sadly. But who knows? Maybe the fan reaction to the reveal have encouraged them. People like the game's composer Grant Kirkhope cares deeply about the series, and I would imagine that he and the other Rare employees would love to be given the opportunity to make a good Banjo Kazooie game. But still, I hope that they try and modernize it a bit like Super Mario Odyssey did, or at the very least, remember what made Banjo Kazooie a good game. That's it. Aren't you forgetting something? I need you to remember what it means to you. Okay? There are a couple of quotes that I want to bring up. One comes from the 19th century poet Oscar Wilde, who said, "If one cannot enjoy reading a book over and over again, there is no use in reading it at all." The other quote comes from the former president of Nintendo America, Reggie Fils-Aimé. He said, "If it's not fun, why bother?" These people lived 2 centuries apart, and yet they both share a very similar sentiment. You can add all of the special effects and little add-ons to a thing, but at the end of the day, if you can't make something enjoyable, then there really isn't any point in doing it at all. And when looking at a game like Banjo Kazooie, I think so much about this. Because to this day, I still enjoy the game so much, and that's part of the reason why I don't think it's fair to say that a game hasn't aged well, when so many people still enjoy it. When people say that a game hasn't aged well, it's usually because the game was never that good in the first place. Banjo Kazooie is a game that throughout my life, I have played through dozens of times. It's a game that's influenced my creative side as a person, the things I like, and it's just so much to me. It's just like in the reprise to Arcade Fire's song, The Suburbs. Every time I play it, I think of all those magical hours I spent as a kid playing it by myself or with my family, and just having a really good time. And if I could have all those hours back that I wasted, I would gladly waste them again and again and again. I really would. How long was I asleep for? That was a weird dream. Banjo Kazooie and Pokemon commercials and the weird 9-minute cartoon that everybody loved in 2000 or whatever. Something about capitalism? I really gotta go outside sometimes. Wait, what? Who left the Xbox on?